Mill Stream. And right over here to our right is where Benny Truett's boat landing used to be. My grandfather sold me that land for about $75 far side. Benny Truett, his father, were all dead. But this is the old marsh, and this is the thing that people call estuarine. And it's a breeding place for sea life. And people are getting very concerned about saving all that stuff. So we have a lot of dead pine trees around the edge. I suppose they die from the salt water. We used to fish in here. We fished right underneath this bridge.
Really?
Sometimes, yeah.
It's fun to come up here in a little rowboat. I remember doing that.
They lived there for 20 years. They were friends of Mother and Dad. When they were younger, they used to come over and help Mother and Dad a lot of times to clean up around the place. Sarah's about, I don't know, 80 years old. Full time, 7 days a week. That's his age. 11.5 acres. And my Uncle Tom and I worked on this field when I was about 4 years old.
You did?
He did it, and I got accompanied him. Right out in the middle of the field, there was a nest of, it's a shorebird, killdeer. And Uncle Tom put a little stake by the nest. And then when we were plowing, we plowed around the nest. And the birds stayed there. Couldn't leave.
It's a big field. How big is it?
11.5 acres.
Wow.
That was 1924 to 25. Uncle Tom cleared all the underbrush from the entire farm.
Really?
All this, yeah. For something to do. He was
Something to do.
He was out of work at the time.
Uh-huh.
He lived down here. My grandfather lived up by the tomato camp.
So this was all woods, just like everything else here.
Well, not the field. The field was there. But this was woods. And he didn't cut down all the trees, but he cut all the underbrush. He thought it was a good project.
Well, I always liked it when we were coming here. We usually came here. And we drive down this little road, and it was always sort of exciting to come down this little road. It always meant a lot to me to drive through the trees and see if the Indians would water and grab me some towels.
Sassafras trees right now.
I think the entrance way to things has a little bit of drama to it. Pass through something to get to a final destination.
Right here in the corner. Always been a persimmon tree. And right now there's a few old, maybe head high, persimmon suckers in there.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know which is persimmon and which is dogwood, but some of it's persimmon. Maybe that stuff right there.
We used to play through here as kids. We used to make houses in the sticks, out of sticks. Yeah, it was our fort area.
Actually, it was not there. It was over here.
Well, we
The time
down
with
there
Bonnie.
and yeah. Nice fond memories. I remember it's right down here someplace, Daddy, where you once asked me where the heart was of the tree.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Poetic moment. Smells good.
I was down here the other day, sort of getting the branches out of here so that people could park in here for the sale at Saturday. And over here too, trying to get them so that they park in between the trees.
Uh-huh. Was that little article put in the local paper or was it put?
Well, it's a little advertising paper.
Uh-huh.
Comes out once a week. Called Sussex Guide.
Uh-huh. Did you place that ad?
No, the big swath was cut through here for the electric line. So I'm guessing it was that. But you got some holly trees in here. A lot of dogwood. There's a white oak.
Grammy loves roses, and she has some beautiful roses right in front of her house, which are in full bloom today.
She also liked this plant right here is one that she loved. And you have to cut it back every fall, and then it blossoms sometime in the summer. And it's crepe myrtle is what it's called, and it's got a beautiful, I don't know, reddish kind of blossom with it. This, let me see. Oh, here's a very nice little tree. It's a little oak. I think maybe it's a water oak. This looks like a cherry here, but this is a nice little oak tree. And there's a swamp magnolia right there that we dug up out of the woods
Uh-huh.
probably 15 years ago, and it's doesn't like it there. Apparently too hot and dry because it's just never done well. The little dogwood beyond it is doing great.
I always like this view of the pier from here. You can see the end of it out there.
During World War II, we bought some little apple trees over in Virginia.
Uh-huh.
They were called the Albemarle Pippin, and I sent them down here, and Mr. Mitchell planted them out here in this little field. We were going to make an orchard here, but nobody ever took care of them. They died.
I see the roses in it.
My grandfather Disney made those screens on this end of made the railing. That was back about 1939 when we first started getting the house ready to use it as a summer house. He spent a couple summers here with us. He loved it. We had an old pitcher pump right out here. That little round table is just this edge of the porch.
I remember that.
And we carried buckets of water up to the toilets and upstairs. We had no electricity. We used candles for light. We carried the
love
water.
The way the roses are like
I think we might have had bottled gas to run the stove. No heat. And during the war, Dad got from his company some radiation and a boiler and had them all set down here. After the war, when he retired, retired when they had the place all ready to live in for good. They bought all that marble top furniture up in the Oranges for like $15 for a chest.
Should we go
Sent that
inside
down.
and
Mother already did.
such a nice view. Come on in. Come on in. We have some comfortable old chairs here. It's always been a great place to take a nap on a summer day. I always like to sit up here and just watch as little boats would go by.
Grandfather made the screens up as far as that door where my dad is. I think it was during the war. Charles Holiday made the screens from there on around to the other end.
Porch goes all the way down here and around the bend. Get a nice breeze down here. Even on a hot day, you usually get a breeze down here. It's such a wide river. It's called the Indian River, right, Daddy?
Mother always said if there wasn't a breeze on one end of the porch, there would be on the other. All this ivy along the bank came from one little sprig that some friends brought from New Jersey. Now it's just really taken over. But the bank was washing away and it's really preserved the bank.
It's amazing how one
Now it's sort of threatening that oak tree down
Trees.
there. Hickory tree.
You want to come down and see the pier? Maybe we'll see some crabs. Squirrels love them. And for the last several years, we've been collecting them in the fall and taking them home to our squirrels in Aurora. They also love them. Mitchell planted this walnut tree right here. Really?
Yeah, put a walnut in the ground and it became this tree.
He put a
walnut?
walnut seed?
Yeah.
A walnut,
A walnut.
nut. A walnut in the ground
Right.
and up grew this big tree.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
There's a lot of little volunteer vines in this on this little hill right here. Ivy.
And one year, Sally found a little turtle right down here in the ground.
Now this is a bayberry right here. It's a very healthy, big one. And we took one to Michigan,
Did you?
but it doesn't do nearly as well as this one. In the wintertime, ours in Michigan, the leaves all dry up. So it's green all winter.
It's getting hot down here already. That's the flies.
We used to have our boats here on this beach. The water snakes used to like to lie on the boats.
Yeah, did you go swimming in this little area? River?
Yeah, we used to swim right off the point right there because it was not so muddy. But for years, we didn't have a pier.
Oh.
And we just had to keep the boats on the beach right there.
Who made the pier?
Oh, Dad, Mother made this point. One year the ice lifted the pier up. It all had to be rebuilt. This river goes back so long. I remember so many things about it. You can't see it very well, but there's a place over there called the Yellow Bank. And that's what we used to call a haul. And the fishermen could put a haul seine out in the river there and pull it in, and there would be no stumps in there. And they could do it without damaging their haul seine. And there was another haul right over here off this point, and these hauls all had names, and I've forgotten what the names are. But
Well, there are a lot of hawks over there, aren't there, that live there?
well, there have been some bald eagles that we see roosting over there nowadays. Of course, the ospreys have all disappeared. Now they're coming back, and they nest on these little channel markers out here in the middle of the river.
They make their nests on those things, don't they?
Yeah, this place where our house is called Hay Landing. That's a name that goes way, way back.
How did Old Landing come about?
Well, Old Landing is the place up where my grandfather's house used to be. That's at the other end of the... And in between here and there is Rack Point. And between this point and Rack Point is Maple Cove. But we used to crab. We used to go down with the boat, crab every foot of this shit.
I like that.
And then we used to grab off this pier with little lines of bait down into the water. Nowadays, nobody does that anymore. We have traps. You put bait in the trap, throw it overboard, come back the next day, and it's full of crabs.
Remember when we came up at 4th of July, your Grammy gave us the line with the chicken neck on it
Yeah.
for bait for the crabs.
Alan loved it.
Ernie had 2 crab traps stolen. He had them in down near the power plant last week. And somebody stole his traps, so
Oh, no.
I told him he could have Mother's old traps from underneath
Well,
it.
why doesn't he just put them around here someplace closer?
I think he feels that the crabs have not come up here yet this year. They're down further, where the water's, I don't know why, whether it's saltier down there or the crabs are bigger or what. Jim Hudson used to live in this house back during the 30s. Lived there rent-free just to take care of the place with his family, wife Susie,
Really?
Calvin, and Mabel. I don't know, they had another dog. All the chickens, pigs, dogs lived in the house.
There were chickens and pigs living in there?
In the house. The doors were, the basement door was always open. In fact, those 2 French doors were usually open for the living room. Almost every night.
The animals went in and out? Chickens and
All
pigs?
the lifestyle. Jim used to have a little pen down here on the beach, and he had some wild geese in there. And he had their wings sort of clipped, so they couldn't fly too far, but they did fly. And I know one day Dad and I were down here, and these geese flew all the way over to the Yellow Bank, and Jim stood there and called them, and they came back.
Cute. Was he like the caretaker before you lived in this place?
Yeah, sort of. But he made his living off the river. He and Calvin were fishermen and crabbers, and they trapped for muskrats in the fall.
Muskrats? What would they do with muskrats?
Sell the hides for like $2, $3, $4
Really?
a piece. That was a common activity on the river.
It's hot down here.
And then they used a gill net in the summer, in the late summer, for fatback. Fatback was a little type of mullet that was very good to eat. They started out very small in the spring. As the summer went on, they grew in size, and they would catch them in a gill net. And the fish would fly in, would swim into the net, and then their gills would get caught in it. But the gill net had to be the right proper size for the size that the fish were at that week or month. So they would start out with 3/4 inch mesh
Oh
net.
my
And
goodness.
build up to maybe an inch and a half by the end of the summer.
Oh my goodness.
But I remember going fishing with them one night, and we took the boat from grandfather's old landing, and we wound up down here by Possum Point, just around the other side of the point where that little house that looks kind of like a lighthouse is. And it was dark, and we put the net out parallel to the beach and maybe 150 feet long maybe. Staked it in place, and then we went in onto the beach, and Jim and Calvin would pound on the beach with their paddle, their oar.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that would frighten the fish, and they'd go out for deep water, get into the net, and then we'd row out and pull the net up. That's when we got the cat back.
I wondered where you were. I figured you were probably.
And we'd be out all night, come in the next morning.
All night?
Yeah, my grandmother would have a pan of this fat pork fatback or something like that they called it. She would fry that in a pan with cornmeal mush.
Oh my gosh,
And I
cornmeal
thought
mush.
That was the greatest breakfast I'd ever had. There's a gull. That's a laughing gull.
It is?
Yeah, they have a black head in the spring, and in the fall they lose the black color.
Oh, we wondered about that, Alan. The black-headed gulls.
They're the laughing gull.
They lose that black.
And they're here in the spring with the black head, and in the fall, the same gulls are here, but you would think they were different gulls.
They do laugh. Alan, remember that? We were talking about how they
Yeah.
laugh.
We have terns here. Some of them are the least tern. They're small
Oh,
birds,
yeah, the
and they
least
fly around real fast, and they dive headfirst right down into the water. Catch what they're after, fish. We have some cormorants here.
Are there some owls here?
You never see owls, and they're here, but we don't know it because we don't see them at night. Now there's a laughing gull right there, black head. Now, I think there's a bird on that channel marker over there, and he's probably a cormorant. There used to be more pines here on our beach, and they've all died. One time during World War II, Marshall and I were out in a boat. We were over there by that point, and Marshall shot a osprey, a fish hawk,
He shot with a gun.
with a .22, and killed it. And we brought it home and took Marshall's picture of it, holding it up, and we were so proud. At that time, nobody worried about fish hawks. This little house was Sam Stodder's house. And my grandfather sold him the full 50 feet of land approximately at the same time that he sold 3/4 of an acre here to Alan Souder for this fishing clubhouse. And Sam was smart enough to put his money into his own thing. And so he kept that until he eventually sold it to my dad back in probably the 50s. But the fishing club went broke shortly after they finished the house because they put more money into the house than they had. And also that was before the Depression.
So it was a fishing club that built the house.
Well, I think it was hunting and fishing. They were a group of school teachers from Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
Really?
And they really used it very little. And then it just sat empty, and a bank in Pottstown held the mortgage. About 1933, 35, I think my dad bought it back 3/4 of an acre with the house on it from the bank. But at that time, they didn't know that he owned the farm, the surrounding farm.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, they would have sold it for a lot more money.
Yeah.
Or held out.
We lived in San Francisco at that time. He wrote them letters. They thought his proposal was amazing.
Why?
Well, because he was offering them so little.
Uh-huh.
So then when they didn't take his offer up, he just let it drop.
Uh-huh.
Later on, they called him, wrote him another letter and said, well, are you still interested?
Really?
He said, sure, and at my price.
And they said okay?
Then they wrote back and said, well, we're inclined to accept your offer.
Oh my gosh. So how much did he pay for the house?
$600.
And then how much for the property?
Well, that all went with it.
Oh, $800 include the whole property.
3/4 of an acre.
Okay, well what about the rest of the property here?
Well, he
You
bought
already-
that in 1913.
How much did you pay for that?
$1,600.
$1,600.
But it took him years and years and years to pay it off. And the property passed back and forth between Dad, grandfather and grandmother, Uncle Harry, and Tom and Ida Barton.
Really?
And when one would get into financial difficulty, another one would buy it from them. And they just kind of passed it around and tried to keep the payments up. maybe they were borrowing on the property
Oh
all the
my
time too.
gosh.
But I know it took years to get it. In fact, at one point there was a lien on the property. And we still have the papers that show that. And the lien was paid off.
Well, it
So
must
it's-
have been a huge investment then. It's a big, very big piece of land.
Well, there's some kind of mystique about it because it's not a piece of land that you could really make a living on. But there was this attachment that the family always had to it. I think it was because father and mother, Levin James and Mary Caroline were in Millsboro, and they wanted to have this kind of base for the grandparents, for one thing, and for anybody in the family that ever got into trouble, they could have a place where they could live anyway. And they carried this sort of little mystique with them into their graves, really.
So it wasn't just
They always
Grandpa.
wanted us to keep it forever.
Oh.
As the same thing, a haven in a storm.
Oh.
But I don't think it's going to be that way because nobody seems to be able to use it. That tree looks like a sweet gum. Right there. It's a pretty tree, isn't it? See the pointed leaves?
Yeah, it's pretty too. Has
Let's see
a
what that
lovely
is when we get back
curve.
there. It
See
may not
the-
be a sweet gum. It may be another hickory nut.
Well, nobody can use it because everyone lives sort of far away from here, right?
Yeah. But we were sort of hoping Jim might, if Margaret Marshall took it, maybe he would sort of carry the load. But his family has interests up in Vermont. So I guess it's just going to go.
Yeah, it's really sad to think of it just being sold to somebody we don't know, just being gone. It's so beautiful.
Well, I just continually have this wish that the thing could sort of stay the way it is. I think if the state owned it, it would be most likely to remain that way. I think we all sort of dread seeing developers cut it up. Well, I
Let's
see
get
a
it.
thrasher.
Really?
Brown thrasher.
Oh yeah.
Carol. Getting sort of warm.
Okay.
Come on in. This is a stove where Grammy always cooked up the crabs right here. It's always sort of a cozy little kitchen. She made scrapple too. That was one of my favorite things for breakfast. Scrapple's little bits of pigs, like pig's eyes and pig's ears and stuff, all mushed together and frozen in a little block. And we eat breakfast right here. She had a great living room too. Come on into the living room. Nice big living room. We'd always sit here in the evenings and watch the TV and listen to Grammy's stories. She had lots of stories. Right here, this was her painting room. Well, she did her tray painting in here. Here's a painting of hers of a Bible.
Pull it back a little bit in the light.
It's a painting of a Bible, I think.
Hmm.
I want to show you something upstairs. Oh, great. This is the hallway. This is a great old room. This is the bedroom I slept in for the first time when I came here. This was a sewing room. I always love these little carpets on the floor. Granny made these. Oh, this room's a mess. But you can come see a view of the river from here. I always loved the view from this room.